Hi there and welcome to Rome Total War Remaster Guide for Trade. This will be first video in a series for guides for Rome Total War Remaster, and today we will speak about trade. We will have several things which we will go over, and we will separate it in parts where we will speak about the UI and understanding how you can check your trade, how you can see how your trade is going at the moment. And second part will be where we will speak how you can use the system and what is the back end of this whole UI and everything which you can see, and you can better understand how you can try to maximize and min-max the trade in Rome Total War Remaster. To start things off for the trade is we need to understand that we need resources, and resources are the goods which we are trading and out of whom we are making money mostly. There are several things and several ways on how to check the tradable goods which you can have. One simple way is that we can go to the map overlay and we can select here tradable goods box, select it, and then we have these tiers over here on all of the goods which we have on the map. Second thing which we can check what are the tradable goods which we have is by simply going over on the map, on the campaign map, and on these tiny little icons of resources. If we hover over, we should see this yellow boxes which will give us information what resource it is and what is the value of that resource. Now when we have that out of the way, we need to speak about the different values and tiers of the resources we have in the game. So for this we will go back to our overlay. There are 5 tiers of trades in Rome Total War Remaster. Tiers are separated between the values of the tradable goods and between their scarcities. So, tier 1 goods, if we select over here, we have all of these tradable goods which are in tier 1, and their value per item goes from 2 to 4 ducats. In tier 2, the value will go from 5 to 6 per item. In tier 3, the value of tradable goods per item will be from 7 to 8. In tier 4, it will be from 9 to 10. And tier 5 is only gold, which is 15. So it is basically increasing by 2 ducats per tier. So that is the value of these items. However, for example, there is something which we need to see and understand. If we go to tier 1 and for example we want to check, let's say, the textiles. If we go over here to the textiles, it says total value is 4. However, on the right side next to the text where we have the icon, it says number 2. That means that this one source will give us 2 outputs of textiles, which will in total give us 4 ducats, which means that one item of textile is worth 2 ducats. So if we go, for example, over here and we check the wild animals, here we have 3 wild animals in this source which are giving us total value of 12, while for example if we go over here we see that 1 wild animal is available from this source and its value is 4. With this basics out of the way, now we will briefly go over the routes and UIs which you have in the game. So to check the UI and check your trade, there are 2 ways you can check the trade. There is a general trade which you have for your entire kingdom or your entire empire, which is shown over here if we go over financial overview, and it is shown under the trade, and it can show under the merchants if we recruit one. The other way, and one which is much better to see the trade, is if we go over to the settlement and we go over here under the settlement income. Here we have income which will show us the income from the trade, which will show us import and export, giving us total over here, while we also have this overlook and this general view of all of the incomes, which will include farming, taxes, trade, administration, etc. So trade is over here, giving us total number. On the right side above, we have income per settlement, which we are trading with, and we have the rest of the income of this settlement down below. Now, when we can check what is the incomes which we have in settlement and for our faction, we can also, when we click on the faction, you can see that we have these white roads, these white lines appearing, and these are basically presenting all of the roads and all of the trade routes which we have. The back end of trading system and how it works. Well, first thing which we need to understand is that every settlement in the game will passively trade with every neighboring settlement. This means that Arretium is trading with Patavium, Arminium, Segesta, and Rome, and as well, because we have a trade link here via the port, with the Capua. So even if we don't have a trade agreement with the Gauls, we are going to trade with the Gauls passively. We can check that if we go under the settlement income section, and we can see Patavium, we are making ducats even though we don't have trade agreement with these Gauls. Note, however, that passive trade will not work if you are at war with that faction. In that case, even though if you are neighboring with those cities, you will not make money from them because naturally you are at war with. So as we said in the start, we are trading with the resources. And the trade is organized in that fashion that we are basically trading with the resources which we don't have in that settlement. Meaning that if we go over here to Sardis, we can see that we have timber, we have textile, marble, and silver, which we are producing. And if we go over here to our neighboring town, which we are trading with, Pergamon, they have textile, they have silver, they have wine, and they have timber. So if we go over here, we can see that with the Pergamon, we are trading for the wine and the marble, because these are the two resources which Pergamon and Sardis don't have in their own territory, and they are exchanging these for the profits. When speaking of these trades and exchanges of goods which we don't have, there are two types of exchanging the goods in the game. There is a direct and indirect route. So as we said, there are direct and indirect trade routes when you are trading. At the start of this video, we said that all of our settlements will naturally trade with every city which we are neighboring if we are not at war with them. And as we said, you can check that in the settlement income tab. However, you also have a passive trade with the ports, and those will follow all of these already pre-made routes, as we can see over here as I'm showing on the map. You see these tiny blue dots and you see this ship moving. So to show you this, if we go to Sardis here, we have a port and we see that we have direct link to roads. However, if we go to the tab, we can see that we also have a passive trade with Thessaloniki as well, while we don't have a trade agreement with them. And that is because there is a passive route for this settlement, for this region. And that represents the indirect trades which we have. Direct trade routes are special because they are always represented by maritime trade route using the ports and sea. So you have a limit of direct trade routes which you can have, and they will bring you much more money. So if we go to Sardis again and we go until this under the settlement income, we can see that basically the total for trade is 572 ducats, while one trade route from Rhodes, which is a sea trade route, is making more than half of all of the money. Same goes for Antioch. If we go here under the settlement income, we have 912 ducats income. And if we go here under the trade routes which we have using the ports, we can see that we again have almost half of the income coming from the ports, and we have only 2 ports, while we have twice as much trade routes established on the land. Direct trade routes are being limited by the level of a port you have. So if we go here and check this out, and I will show you, if we have here under the first basic port which we have trade fleets available 1. If we go to the tier 2 of this building, we have 2, and if we go in a tier 3, we have 3 routes available. How these direct trade routes are being made is that the AI and the system will pick the most valuable route available for you at the moment, and he will use that direct route to fill that slot which you have. Direct trade route can also connect you with your capital. So if we go over here to Antioch, we see that we have tier 2 port, which will allow us to have 2 tradable fleets, and it is connecting us with the roads and all the way to Sardis. How this works is that if one of your settlements is being connected to your capital, that settlement will transfer all of that trading power which they are making with all of the neighboring cities from other factions all the way to your capital. However, you need to note that if you are establishing these type of trade routes, they are taking 1 slot. So not all of your cities with ports will link to your capital instantly, because they will take slot. And if that trade route isn't as valuable as, for example, Antioch trading with Alexandria, for example, then that city will not be linked with your capital. Now that we have a direct trade link established, let's speak how the trade will happen and how do we exchange the resources. As we said at the start of the video, you are trading resources which you don't have. And when you make a direct link with a city, for example, like Salamis, which makes a direct link with Sidon, they will import and export between themselves all of the resources which they have. However, if we go over here to Alexandria, we can see that they have a direct trade link with Salamis and Sidon, but neither Salamis or Sidon has their trade routes back to Alexandria. This means that Alexandria can export all of its goods to Salamis and Sidon, but cannot import the goods from them which they don't have. So if we can go and check, both Sidon and Salamis have timber, while Alexandria doesn't have timber. If we go and check the trade routes, we will see that we don't have anywhere over here timber. While if we go to these settlements and check, they don't have grain anywhere. If we go under their trade tab, we will see that they will have an import of trades which they get from Alexandria. So far we've discussed how you can establish trade. what you can trade and how you can trade in Rome Total War Remaster. Now let's speak how you can boost those established trade routes using the ports and using the roads for trade routes. If we go here to the Antioch and we go to the building tab, and at the same time we turn on the settlement income, we can check all of the incomes which we have. Now there are two buildings which will help you boost further your trading capacity. Trading capacity can be boosted by the trade market, Agora, etc., and by the roads. So these two are different type of infrastructures for your trading capacity. Roads will affect only trade routes which will link your settlements using the roads, meaning inland trade, while market will affect all of the trade using inland routes and sea routes ports. Other way you can expand and further boost your trade is by increasing population and generally increasing the quantity of your goods and people. However, this increase is not that big and you will not see huge change for trade based on the population growth which you have. Another cool mechanic which you have in Rome Total War Remaster are merchants, which are new addition in a remaster. So what is so special about these merchants is that basically when you make a market in your settlement and you have an available merchant which you can recruit, that merchant is linked with your city, and the trade which he will make will be impacted based on the resources you have in the city. So for example, if we check Sardis here, we see that we are producing textile, marble, silver, and timber. And this trader is directly linked with his base town, which is Sardis. If we go and tell this merchant, okay, I want you now to go and trade here with a timber, he will say that his potential income will be 0. Why? Well, Sardis as a settlement already has timber. However, if we go over here and scroll over wine, it will say that potential income can be 18, which means that he will trade the resource back to his original settlement, which you are missing. And if you click on other resource which you already have from your base settlement, he will not make ducats. So if we go and click him over here, he will go and start collecting money from there. If we overlay over this merchant, we can see that it says that his income next turn is 12 ducats, but potential income can be 18 ducats. To explain this how it works, let's go back to the overlay. If we go to the overlay and we select tier 2 under where the wine is, and we can check with the mouse over, it says wine, total value is 12 ducats, and we have 2 items of it. So that means that one wine is making us 6 ducats. So let's go back to our merchant. He is now collecting 12 ducats, which is the exact number of income which he can get based on the fact that we have 2 wines, each worth 6 ducats. However, this potential income is representation of 50% of the base value added to the total value. In another word, one item of wine is 6 ducats. However, merchant can get 9 ducats out of it, so he can get 150% of the value if he manages to get that monopolization up. Last but not the least is trade agreement mechanic in the game. What trade agreement mechanic will do, that it will boost the already ongoing trade links and trade routes which we have with that faction, either the direct links or the passive links which we have just from the fact that we are neighboring them by around 200%. So if we go over here and we have diplomat ready to trade with the Greek states, Sardis currently is trading 12 ducats with Pergamum. If we go and we make a trade agreement with them using the trade rights, if we go back to Sardis and inspect, now we are making 38 ducats a turn from using the trade rights with the Greeks. In the end, I hope that you guys enjoyed in this video. I hope that it made it a little bit more clearer how the trade links are established, what you are trading, how you are trading, and understanding that trade is not the simplest thing. In theory it is simple, but in practice you can make a huge theory out of, for example, which settlement I want to prioritize the growth to make several ports so I can export some high quality goods. For example, here like Salamis, which has a really good purple ties and it has gold, which have huge value. And if I have trade port rank 3 allowing me to trade and make direct links with 3 cities, Salamis can be a huge hub for making money. If you have any questions regarding this, please leave them down below in the comment sections, and you can request other guide here as well, and I will go and make some more. Thank you guys, and bye.